Hey there guys! So today's tutorial is on a type of movement that has become very near and dear to my heart in the past couple years, which is contact poi. Namely the two what I would consider to be most basic contact rolls that there are. The inner forearm roll and the outer forearm roll. Now a lot of people will probably say that contact poi is a bit more techy, but quite frankly I don't think there's any kind of technique inside of this that is absolutely dependent upon you getting X or Y tacked down. So I'm going to throw this out there as a beginner tutorial because I'm willing to bet you anything that beginners can actually pick up on a lot of this stuff. And the earlier people are picking up these tricks, the better, I say. So let's talk real quick about hardware. Now clearly it is easiest to do these tricks with a set of poi that have one of these contact juggling balls on the very end. However, it is not absolutely required. E6, among others, have found ways of doing contact poi with a variety of other sets of poi. Just so long as there is some dimension along which the poi is round, it seems to work out pretty well, right? That said, the ones with contact juggling balls on the end are easiest. I will leave you guys to make this choice for yourself. Item number 2, the length of the tether. A lot of folks are going to tell you that the most important thing you can consider in getting good rolls is the size of the contact juggling ball. I don't believe that this is the case. I believe that the most important variable is the length of the tether. The reason being that it's a simple matter of when the ball is rolling, the momentum is coming from the movement of the handle. So the shorter the handle is, the shorter the distance it's going to cover before it runs out of momentum. The longer the handle is, the greater the distance it's going to cover before it runs out of momentum, regardless of what the size of the ball at the end of it is, or what have you material is, right? So I'd recommend starting off with a set that is at least as long as from your thumb joint to mid-bicep, and if you can get it closer to the full length of your arm, all the better. Once you've got that in tow, it's time to start working on your first roll, which we're going to start with the inner contact roll, which occurs from a palm open position, palm reaching towards the sky. You start off by having the poi, or rather the poi tether, rotating backwards, and you're going to let it roll along the tippy top of this forearm right here and roll off essentially the edge of your elbow away from you. As that happens, the tether should be coming up in such a way that you can catch it in the palm of your hand in that position that the poi head just was in, right? How you get there? Number one, check out when I start off, if you look straight down my arm, you'll see that the plane the poi tether is on is not perfectly straight. The reason for this is if it were, the poi head would go straight back to the pit of my elbow rather than the outside of my elbow. Once again, we're talking about the momentum of the tether here. If the tether is set such that it slightly crosses over, if you imagine there's a straight line going out from your hand, and the angle of the tether is kind of slightly off angle from that, what it does is it's going to lead the poi along that line. So if it's at a slight diagonal, that diagonal is going to carry it outside of your forearm, right? Also, try and keep your forearm flat as you're doing this. Once you've got both of these variables in place, all you need to do is essentially let go of the poi head, and it should roll off your forearm and the tether should come into your hand. If you're having problems getting the poi head off of your arm, one way around them is you can actually abort the roll a little bit early by rotating your forearm just slightly outwards. It twists up your arm a little bit, but it does work. And in that case, as you can see, I'm essentially aborting so it leaves about mid-forearm, as opposed to if I give it the full roll, it'll go essentially all the way back to my elbow. Yeah? So practice it first with just doing that abort to get a feeling for the roll. And hopefully if you've got enough momentum behind it, you shouldn't have to worry about the tether being in position. Yeah, work your way further and further up the forearm until you can get the exit a lot closer to the elbow, right? Now, as for the back of the forearm, that's going to be a different struggle entirely. That's going to start off with learning how to hold the poi in what's called cradle. Now, when I do cradle, I'm essentially putting the contact juggling ball between these two fingers, my index and middle finger, and the tether itself is coming out between them, right? There are some people that will do a more full cradle where they're using all of their hand. This is totally a taste thing. Whichever one works for you, whichever one is more stable. Once you've got the poi sitting in cradle like that, I want you to go for a walk with it. Walk around your house, walk around outside to the bus stop, walk to your car holding the poi like this, yeah? The reason being, you are teaching your hand and forearm how they need to articulate in order to make this position stable, and it's going to be so incredibly important to know this in order to get the roll complete. Once you've done this for a couple days or what have you, and you're feeling pretty comfortable with having the poi sit in a cradle position, you're going to start working on the roll. Now to get there, you're going to start doing a pendulum back and forth with the tether. Crucial here is to think both about the amount of momentum you got and also where the plane of the poi tether is. Unlike that first roll that we played with, you actually want the poi tether to be more or less parallel with your arm. Also, in order to make sure that you've got enough momentum, you want to be starting from a position where the tether is essentially horizontal, right? Now, as luck would have it, there's an easy way to check to make sure that both of these things are true. And that is when you are doing the tether back and forth, there will be a moment when it comes back towards your elbow, and I don't know if you can see, there's a little knob of bone that's popping out underneath my elbow right here. I think it's the joint of the ulna. When you feel the poi handle click against that bone, it tells you both that you have enough momentum and also that it's in the proper plane, in which case it's go time. In order to initiate the actual roll, what you're going to do is you're going to kind of real quickly flick your hand forwards and slightly up. Now, a lot of us, in order to get this moving, will try and angle our arms up. And what will happen is what you just saw. The poi will get wrapped around your elbow. You want to keep your forearm as flat as possible while doing this. And once again, the poi tether, right about the time that the poi head is dropping off your elbow, will come back around and be catchable to your hand, right? It takes a little bit of doing to figure out how much momentum you need to give the poi head in order to initiate this roll. Give it a whole bunch of tries. I actually find it's easiest to start initiating that roll right from that moment when you feel the poi head, or rather the poi tether, click against that elbow bone. When that happens, that's when you initiate that flick. It's almost like pumping up a swing set, yeah? When that happens, the roll begins, and just like before, you can rotate your forearm slightly off to get an early exit, and hopefully the tether is in place by then, right? And again, just work your way gradually up your forearm until you feel comfortable having it go all the way back to your elbow before you catch that tether. If you're really suave about it, you can get it to the point where you can just catch the thing and send it straight back, which I am normally not suave enough to do, but you guys may be more on top of it than I am. So, kind of that position and then pushing it back, right? So, yeah, that's contact juggling, or contact poi, excuse me, 101. Yeah, I hope this helps some of you guys out there. And yeah, beginners, do not be afraid of this. It's not as hard as you think. I picked up the basics of this in the lunch line at Wildfire one day in about 10 minutes from Ted Petrosky. So, yeah, it's out there. Go chase it down. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll be back next Friday with another tutorial. Peace.